so much, everyone. That's Nutville. You may have guessed, if you are familiar with drums at all, that's a chart made famous by Buddy Rich, hence the drum solo at the end. Thank you, Deacon. Give it up for Deacon one more time. And we also got to hear from Aiden one more time on tenor, throwing down. Thank you so much, Aiden. And Drake absolutely playing his guts out on trumpet. Really nice job, buddy. That was great. Drake, you gotta wave. You gotta wave at the people. Oh, he's ruining his moment. Okay. Okay, next up we have Miles Davis chart. This is 4. And that was Henry on tenor saxophone. Let's hear for Henry one more time. And Sophie one more time over on alto. And David throwing down on trumpet. Thank you so much. This next chart is by Count Basie. Count Basie is one of those founding fathers of jazz, so it's very introductory swing, if you will. Even though that is the case, you might notice that the piano part is very, very light, but the rest of the band is really, really cooking the entire time. This is called Straight Ahead from an album of the exact same name. Thank you so much. And of course, the Count Basie chart. Count Basie was a piano player, so we also heard from Lom on piano. Thank you so much, Lom. And now, in an effort to try to give them some kind of chop break before we keep destroying their chops before the end of this evening, I think we want to hear from Sophie and Aiden. They both wanted to say something really quick.
All right, so yeah, I'm Aiden, and one there's a lot of really good, fantastic members in our band, but one of our the best lead voices, who sadly is a senior, is gonna graduate soon. His name's David Parsons, and well, I just want to say, David, thank you, because ever since when I first met you freshman year, last year at Anything Goes, it was just, you were just a talented musician, but not only that, you were just a better friend. And just, we wanted to give you this card from a part of all of us from the program and us students, so thanks, David.
So nice to hear such sincere words from the students. It's really fantastic. This next chart is called Valse Hot. This was actually arranged by Mr. Rowe. He's back over there behind the trees. Hi, Mr. Rowe. Here we go. It's called Valse Hot. All right, everybody, we're jumping to the end of our set. We got one more for you. This is Manteca. It's by Dizzy Gillespie and his band. At that time, there was a whole lot of mix of swing and then Cuban rhythm. We came into this in addition, so this is a chart that has a lot of Latin feel to it that goes into it. So yeah, Manteca. We don't know who's soloing first. We're just gonna kind of play it by ear and see what happens. So I hope you enjoy it.